Today we're going to talk a little bit different. We're talking about some important mistakes that you want to avoid when having your kids share the room. Hey there, welcome back to my channel, Little Kids and Lovely Spaces. My name is Richa Sinha and I'm your host and go-to expert for creating beautiful, functional spaces that allow your kids to grow and thrive. Today we are diving into a topic that is tricky, but at the same time can be very rewarding. And we have spoken about this before, where I have discussed sharing kids' rooms, two kids sharing the same room. But today we're going to talk a little bit different. We're talking about some important mistakes that you want to avoid when having your kids share the room. All right, so let's get started. So let's start with one of the biggest challenges when designing a shared space for kids, and that is lack of privacy. So how do you give each child that sense of this room belongs to them? Simple ways are put in a room divider, maybe a curtain that separates the two spaces. Another great way is to put a bookshelf in the center, even something as simple as just changing the bedding. So, if, especially when they are of different genders, so if you're thinking a boy and a girl sharing a room, which is what I had to face. And when my kids were little, so what I did was I gave them different bedding. So one had dinosaurs, guess who, and the other had butterflies. I have to give you one caveat here, though. This was something that I had not yet learned, so I don't want you to make the same mistake, and I will talk about it in detail later. But deciding on the themes of dinosaur and butterfly were really my decisions and nothing to do with what the kids really wanted. So we will address this at a later time, but just giving them different bedding itself just kind of gives them their own space and says, this is my space and this is your space. All right. So that would be the number one, is how to address the privacy. Now let's talk about age gaps, especially when there is a large difference in ages, but most important from the safety point of view when it is a toddler and an infant sharing a room. The most common mistake parents make is not understanding the individual needs of their ages. For example, like an infant has nighttime feeding. They require more naps. A toddler, on the other side, requires a more active setup. They want play areas. You need to address each individual's requirements so neither one of them feels neglected. To make this work, you need to create zones. So sleep zone, play zone. And I understand sometimes the room is not big enough to allow for every kind of activity in the room. You might need to look outside the room to find those different zones. So if it is your baby's nap time, is there a different play area where your toddler can at that point enjoy their playtime without disturbing the baby? And at the same time, figure out if there is like a white noise setup that you can do. So when the baby starts crying in the middle of the night, it is not affecting your toddler's sleep. So keeping in mind the different age groups and what they might need at that point is very important when designing shared spaces. So color, and I would say more importantly, paint can be your best friend in a shared space. Don't be afraid of going bold or creating something larger than life. Using bold, vibrant colors just brings a lot of energy into the room. It brightens up, it brings cheer to your child's room. And if you're worried that it might be too bold for your own choices, feel free to bring in some neutral hues. Maybe the furniture can be neutral. With some accent pieces, I always like to do something fun, maybe a small side table, maybe the back of the bookshelf, the inside of their closets. That's where you can go completely overboard with a nice bold color and yet not have it overwhelm the entire room. So I have mixed feelings about themes. Should you or should you not go in for themes? I like themes. I think for young children especially, it is nice. It's an acknowledgement of their journey really through the years. You have to buy them new clothes every 6 months. You have to buy them new shoes every 6 months. You have to invest in school supplies every year. I mean, you are already spending all these things that show that they are growing up. You moved from maybe a toddler chair to a proper desk and chair when they started going to school. So there are different things that mark their journey as they're growing older. And I just feel like themes are just a part of that. And again, it doesn't mean that it has to be expensive. It doesn't mean that you have to go overboard with, getting everything related to one theme, but a slight nod and something that doesn't break the bank. I think it's nice. And again, to tie it in with the previous, point that I made, paint. Paint is your best friend. And today there are wall decals, peel and stick wallpaper. There are so many, options that are not, excuse me, that are not tying you to a certain thing for eternity. So if there is a theme that you can successfully bring into the room without it overwhelming the room, without it looking chaotic in the room, I would say yes, but that's my personal opinion. You can always go with neutrals. You can always go with color coordinated options instead. I just think like in a child's room, really, that's the only time that they get to, enjoy themselves like that. Okay, so this one is universal. No matter what the age group, no matter what the gender, whoever is sharing the room, storage solutions are a high priority. Do not skimp on storage in your child's room. Clutter can build quickly in a space, and especially when there are two kids sharing the same room. If the room is very small and you are challenged for finding storage, think multifunctional pieces. Captain's bed with multiple drawers under them. Think vertical. So more and more shelves on the walls that can take bins, labeled bins. If the child is too small to be able to read, you want to come up with symbols, pictures, things that are going to make it easy for your child to clear up the clutter, or at least help you clear up the clutter. Don't neglect storage. It is super, super important to keep your room organized. All right, so this is a really big one. Choosing the wrong layout for the room can literally cause major frustrations for you as well as for the kids. What I mean by that is think of how the kids want to use the space and what would be the best layout. So do the beds need to be parallel to each other? Do they need to stick to the walls so you have more space in the center for them to play? Do you want bunk beds, which again won't work for a toddler and infant? Do you need to stick a crib in there? So many options to consider. Again, it's all about keeping in mind the children, what their activities are going to be, and what would be the best use of the space. So when two girls and two boys share a space, we can sometimes forget about their individual personalities and try to group it all together. Oh, they're boys, they have to like blue. Or the girls, give them fairies. No. Consider their individual personalities when you are creating a shared space. So if one likes rainbows but the other likes dinosaurs, you have to find a way to integrate the two. The best way out is to talk to your children individually. I always stress on talking to them individually in a shared space because you do not want the more dominant child to get their ideas taken and the quieter one to just feel like nobody's listening to them. So take care of their individual personalities. If they are not able to, or if you are not able to come up with an idea that meshes the two, come up with something that is neutral and try to find more interesting ways of bringing their individual likes in. Maybe put their names. So maybe the one who likes pirates can have his name or her name written in a theme that's more piratey, if that's a word. And if your daughter, or again, I don't want to give any gender specific themes, but if the other child likes guitars, nothing to do with pirates, then find a name style that would go with their likes and their preferences. So there are so many ways to bring in their feel to their area of the room so that their individual personalities can shine and thrive and grow beautifully. Okay, one of the last mistakes that I commonly see in kids' shared rooms is the lack of prints and patterns. You want to bring in patterns, you want to bring in prints, because those not only do they add dimension, but they add character to the room. And it is a great way to bring in color for those of you who are who love the neutrals, who don't want to risk a very bold look in the room. This is a wonderful, wonderful way to bring in those little pops of color without it overwhelming you. Not so much the kids. Don't let it overwhelm you, because think different textures. And I am going to be doing a series on patterns, prints, and textures. So I'll discuss in more detail. I will show you patterns and prints that go well together and how do you pair them. So there are geometrics, there are florals, there are paisleys. There are so many different forms of patterns. There are some that will go well together and some that I would not do at all. We will go over that in detail when I go over prints, patterns, and textures. But just keep in mind that in all those prints and patterns, it can make or break your design. So be very intentional about what you're bringing in. But again, don't be afraid of trying them out. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I would really appreciate if you would give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share it with your friends and loved ones. I will be putting a link in the description below to my free resource library. So please sign up. It is filled with checklists, planners, shoppable mood boards, all kinds of fun things. And as a bonus, I do give you my free guide on creating kid-friendly spaces that are still stylish and chic. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.